Howdy! This is the one and only Dylan Cope of Cope Automotive, where automotive news meets zesty, passionate opinion. Today we'll be discussing my own 2023 Formula One driver and constructor predictions. I've put an unhealthy amount of research into this, trying to avoid personal bias. There are, of course, some surprises. There are some fairly expected placements. If you have not viewed one of my videos before, go ahead, like and subscribe if you enjoy it. Let's get this started. Diving into the 2023 season, there's a lot of driver changes, a lot of mix-up between teams, and mostly it seems for the better, mostly. Let's start off with the Drivers' Championship. Now, there are, of course, several new names, including 3 rookies. Starting from the bottom, there's always going to be one who's dead last, and in my case, that is going to be, drumroll, fairly unsurprising, Logan Sargent. Now, Logan Sargent is a step up from Latifi, but nevertheless, he is a rookie, an American one at that, which I am full support of. He's going to have a fairly straightforward season, but he is in the slowest car on the slowest team. My opinion, he's going to be P20. Following that, we have, Yuki Tsunoda. I am a big Yuki and AlphaTauri fan, but I just don't think following last season, AlphaTauri will emerge as this fiery midfield talent that it was a couple seasons ago. A couple seasons ago, between Yuki and Pierre Gasly, they had some very, very strong performances. But last year, my goodness, just was not happening, and I think Yuki Tsunoda will fall victim to another poor car, and his performances will just not be good enough to show through it. P18, we have none other than Oscar Piastri of McLaren. Now, I don't know how their car is going to be looking. That's one of the big mix-ups of the grid, is they just did not have a good preseason testing. The car last year seemed to be required to be driven on a knife's edge, according to Lando Norris. And this season, they were just behind on development schedule. With Oscar Piastri, he has had incredible success winning Formula 3, Formula 2 championships, and I'm excited for him to emerge as a new young Formula 1 talent. I just don't believe that the combination of the car and his talents will get him past 18th. Number 17 will be Nick de Vries. Again, AlphaTauri will not have a competitive midfield car. However, Nick de Vries, while he's a rookie, is he a rookie? I mean, the guy is as old as Max Verstappen, and last season and many times outside of open wheel racing, he's proven himself as a very consistent, reliable guy. Now, there's an article that supports this theory that he is a very confident, mature individual who's competitive. He's really cracking AlphaTauri to get the ball rolling on this season. He's doing a little Niki Lauda, let's have the team work a little bit harder, and I'm going to push them that much further to get a result. Though again, it is his rookie season. At the time of this video, it seems as though AlphaTauri is not going to be sold, but still, that's never a good sign going into a season. The fact that a team might just disappear and be sold off for something else, you need stability, and AlphaTauri just doesn't have that. I have Nick de Vries at 17th. Moving on, for 16th, I have placed Kevin Magnussen. K-Mag, I have a ho-hum relationship with Kevin. While he had some fine performances last year for Haas, Haas just seemed to run out of steam very, very quickly. I don't know if their previous season fizzle was a Uralkali money fallout. I don't know if it was a doubt in Mick Schumacher, but man, did that team just seem to implode after just a few races. He had an incredible opening race at Bahrain, and then after that, there were a few points performances, but nothing to the likes of Valtteri Bottas putting the team on his back, for example, for Alfa Romeo. I have Kevin Magnussen comfortably at P16. Really am not expecting too much out of him. P15 will be going forward to Alex Albon. Alex is a very interesting, dynamic driver in my opinion. Of course, he started off his Formula One career driving for Red Bull. He replaced Pierre Gasly and put up some very, very solid performances, and in my opinion, was prematurely discarded for the likes of Sergio Perez. And it's very, very rare for a driver to have another chance like Alex Albon, or Kevin Magnussen for that matter. Last year, the Williams was the slowest car on the grid by a large margin. It was really down to driver talent, and I think building on the Williams platform, we'll see Alex Albon flirt with the points enough times to put him further up into P15. Now, moving on with the midfield, we have Nico Hülkenberg. He is a crafty, sharp, smart German driver who I think is just going to outperform Kevin Magnussen. I like Nico Hülkenberg. My friend Mark looks identical to him. Shout out to Mark. But at 14th, is he going to excel in the midfield? I just don't think Haas is really going to get the job done this season. I'd like to support an American team. And I think Günther Steiner is a fabulous individual, but I don't think that there really has anything beyond a Ferrari powertrain that will be more reliable and a couple of senior drivers. Nico Hülkenberg, 14th. P13. I'm going to get some flack for this, but I gotta be honest, Lando Norris. I just think that McLaren it's going to be a hard car to nail down this season. Lando is such an exceptional driver, but he can't do everything. He's going to have a lot of frustrations. I really wish the best for Lando. I really do. McLaren very well may develop the car mid-season, but he's got a rookie Oscar Piastri to assist in development. Lando's really got to step up here, and this year, mark my words, will be the biggest challenge of his career. P12 will go to a driver who I am a fan of for sure, and that's Zhou. I think Zhou had a highly underrated rookie season for Alfa Romeo last year, and reflecting on his points does not show, and I repeat, it does not show the extent of success within his season. Yes, he was properly outraced by his teammate Valtteri Bottas, but he was just consistent and he was smooth. And if there were any DNFs, it was in regards to a terrible powertrain, or it was because just someone else ran into him, i.e. George Russell, i.e. Nicholas Latifi. If you have a chance, go back and check out his season. He's a very good driver, and he's already come out and said that he feels much stronger this season. Ooh, another one that I really don't like to say. P11, I have Pierre Gasly. I am a massive Pierre Gasly fan. He is a wonderfully talented individual who really, in the last few years, has pushed his AlphaTauri to the limit, and he deserves to be in a top team. Alpine was the best choice for him, but once I bounce to the constructors section of the video, I will explain further as to why I think Alpine will not be the midfield dominant force that they were prior season. Pierre Gasly, it'll take him a little bit to get to the swing of things with the new Alpine. I don't think there's going to be a tremendous amount of pressure for Pierre to really knock out of the park. P11 is a fine standing for him. It's going to be a massive step up from where AlphaTauri was last season. P10, we got Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll, this has been really mysterious in regards to what his injury is from a biking accident. If you were to break both of your wrists, how long would you be out from driving a high-performance car that requires your wrists? Several months. Lance Stroll doesn't have that if he's trying to get behind the seat and be a part of a race-winning team. Who are they going to have as their secondary driver? Now, are they going to stick with Felipe Drugovich in regards to multiple races? Are they going to call Sebastian Vettel back and have an Alonso-Vettel combination? I think Lawrence, he will still put Lance over a championship potential combination of drivers. Say what you want about Lance Stroll in regards to him being daddy's boy. He's not a bad driver. He's not. I'm very curious as to how his injury plays into this season. And it's very strange how Aston Martin is being very mysterious. That being said, Lance Stroll, P10, P9 goes to what? And I feel like these last two, I feel like these two could switch, which I know is controversial for many. Valtteri Bottas. Bottas, man oh man, has that guy flourished since coming out of Mercedes. When he was at Mercedes, he was a secondary figure. He was in the shadow of Lewis Hamilton, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you will not thrive mentally or physically like Bottas has when he has dropped down to Alfa Romeo Sauber. I think last season for Valtteri Bottas, they had an incredibly strong launch vehicle that really propelled him to a level that shocked a lot of people. I mean, P5 in Spain, he was chasing down George Russell as well as Lando Norris in Spain. And simply because of reliability concerns and development issues, he couldn't grow further with that team. I think with the benefit of rear suspension development, I really think that new Alfa Romeo has what it takes to really bring it to Alpine this season. Valtteri Bottas, P9, I'm feeling very confident about that. P8 goes to Esteban Ocon. Ocon's a very good driver. He's very consistent, and he's coming up on a new contract for Alpine. He's really got to show his stuff. He's really got to play good with his teammate for once, because again, he could be dropped at the end of this season. I think Pierre Gasly has a higher ceiling than Esteban Ocon, but Ocon has just been driving for Alpine for a little bit longer. He's going to have some solid points performances. This midfield game is going to be a lot closer than the previous season, and Alpine will barely edge out Alfa Romeo. E7 goes to none other than Fernando Alonso. My goodness, am I excited by this new Aston Martin. Every season, there's going to be some sort of dark horse that makes its way up. I think Alfa Romeo has some dark horse in them, but really it's going to be Fernando Alonso and this new Aston Martin weapon. He had excellent pace last year. He had strong pace the year before. If he's got a decent car, he could really be knocking on George Russell and Carlos Sainz's door, maybe even overtake them on a few occasions. And with Aston Martin and Lawrence Stroll's new development, they could really consistently stay up with these top teams, which is really refreshing. P6, George Russell. George Russell had a very strong season last year. I really thought that this year, Mercedes was going to step up their game and come out with a car that confidently was above Ferrari, chasing after Red Bull. But they're not there. It's very shocking. George Russell, P6. P5, Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz, before last season, was a very consistent, very fast driver, and he still is a very consistent, very fast driver. Man, did he have some very bizarre spinouts. I think the pressure that Ferrari had the chance of outdoing Red Bull really bit into his psyche, and I think that while he will have less mental blocks and spinouts, the field's just going to be closer. I think Fernando Alonso, again, is really going to come in and just disrupt a lot of Ferrari Mercedes races. P4, Lewis Hamilton. Last season really humbled Lewis Hamilton. I like Lewis Hamilton, but just like anyone, I was a little bit tired by his dominance, and last season, truthfully, I think was one of the best things that could have happened to Lewis Hamilton. It reignited a hunger for him and the Mercedes team to really move forward with their development and becoming the underdogs. If they can carry that underdog mentality into further developing the car, maybe Mercedes will be able to move forward and really compete with Ferrari. But at this time, Lewis Hamilton fourth, I don't see him being above that. P3. And P3 goes to Charles Leclerc. I really want Chuck and Ferrari to do exceptional this year, but I don't have any evidence proven otherwise. Red Bull's drivers are just too consistent. Their car and platform is too viciously fast. I'd really like to see Chuck dive into another opportunity at winning a championship. But I don't think Ferrari produced a car that can do that. P2, Max, I'm totally kidding with you. It's Sergio Perez. Sergio Perez, Checo is a strong racer. The only thing that can really disrupt Perez is himself, or it's Max Verstappen. In preseason testing, that RB19 was strong, smooth at the hands of Max and Checo. And P1, obviously, Max Verstappen. There's no evidence that I see until proven otherwise that he can be dethroned as the #1 driver and champion. Frankly, he was so perfect last year, apart from one spin, was it? And some reliability issues, truthfully. Yeah, Max Verstappen, P1. I'm not a Max hater. I just, like anyone, would prefer to see a little bit more of a mix-up and chance. I'd love to be proven wrong outside of a Red Bull 1-2, but there's no evidence otherwise. Max is going to be champion again for 2023. All right, so with the driver predictions complete, you can have a pretty good idea as to what my perspective will be for the 2023 Constructors side of the season. Starting, of course, with number 10, none other than Williams. Last year, they were 10th. Their strengths were strong performances by Alex Albon, Nick DeVries, and the Latifi memes were great. They also had great straight line speed, but they were the slowest overall car on the grid by a pretty large margin. Their mid-corner speed was not there. They did tune that Mercedes engine up and were slaying it when it came to longer tracks like Spa, for example. But I am not seeing enough that should put them anything more towards the back of the grid for 2023. In 9th for the Constructors Championship, I have AlphaTauri. Last year, they were also 9th. Their strengths, I guess, were the Honda powertrain and the occasional Yuki Gasly performance that they could squeeze out of that car. That car was just so bad from the get-go. Their season never seemed to have a chance, which is so bizarre to me. I don't understand with their connection to Red Bull that they just can't piece it together. Obviously, I'm not a Formula One engineer. To be 9 positions down for your sister team is pretty mind-boggling. I don't see anything changing for this season. In 8th, it will be Haas. Last season, they had an improvement with Kevin Magnussen's return, and they had a strong base car at launch, but weaknesses last season, which have been improved now. One would be Mick Schumacher being replaced with Nico Hülkenberg. They really had an issue with reliability and funding. Now, MoneyGram is their new fancy sponsor. I think funding will boost them this season, but I don't see it going beyond that. In 7th, we have McLaren, who last year were 5th. McLaren seems to be just behind on their car. Last season, their strengths were Lando Norris. Their weaknesses were a knife's edge handling car, and unfortunately, sorry Daniel Ricciardo fans, but Daniel Ricciardo did not help that team move forward, and that's why they were just outpaced by Alpine. It seems like the development of this new McLaren is not looking good. Their preseason testing consisted of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri fighting for control over their car. Again, it seems like a knife-edge performance. Oscar Piastri has a lot of talent, but as a rookie, you can only contribute so much. I have McLaren 7th. In 6th, we have Sauber Alfa Romeo Stake. That's S-T-A-K-E. Last year they were 6th, and they will maintain their place in 6th. Their strengths last year were a very strong launch car, being the lightest on the grid. They really improved their driver lineup. Last season was really strong for them, but they had a lot of issues. Terrible reliability. As soon as they introduced car development at, I believe it was Monaco, they never had the pace. Apart from a Ferrari powertrain transmission issue that Valtteri Bottas had to deal with in preseason testing, it seems like Alfa Romeo has focused all of their energy into fixing their rear suspension setup, which, according to Valtteri Bottas, is 50% better. I don't know about you, but the Finnish are not ones who are the type to over-exaggerate things. So for Alfa Romeo, he had a really strong last year's season. He's coming into the season saying he's even stronger. That really could propel them potentially over Alpine. I'd like to see that. In fifth, we have Alpine, who last year was fourth. They had a good overall car last year, and the combination of Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon, that was a really good driver lineup, but wasn't a good driver lineup because clearly they weren't getting along. Alpine has the issue of reliability on their hands and further driver tension. I think that while it won't be immediate, Esteban Ocon, Pierre Gasly, there's still going to be butting heads. I don't think Mr. Otis Spunkmeyer has a history of being a good driver's coach. I think he's good at car development. I think he's good at the business side of things. He doesn't come off as a coach who's good at the psychological side of drivers. At Racing Point, he couldn't break up Sergio Perez, Esteban Ocon. At Alpine last year, he really didn't have any influx in the relationship between Esteban Ocon and Fernando Alonso. Now coming in with tension already known between Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly, why would he suddenly be good at de-escalating driver tension? I think that triangle of team principal, Esteban Ocon, Pierre Gasly, and then the car potentially not being reliable, I think that little Illuminati triangle here potentially result in an upset under Alfa Romeo. But at this time, I have Alpine at fifth. Aston Martin. Aston Martin is so far considered to be the dark horse of the Formula One paddock. Good thing about Aston Martin last year is they were the opposite of Alfa Romeo, whereas Alfa Romeo had a very, very strong starter car that nosedived in development. Aston Martin had a literal tractor that Sebastian Vettel could not figure out. His ability and knowledge of the sport projectiled them forwards, occasionally into a wall, or Nicholas Latifi, projectiled them forward in their development, and they nearly had Alfa Romeo last season, if not for Valtteri Bottas, as previously mentioned, Spain finish. Lawrence Stroll's investment to the Aston Martin development facilities, we're already seeing its benefit. As the season continues, they now have the ability to further fine-tune that car under Fernando Alonso. I just have no idea how Lance Stroll will factor in to this very spicy medical situation. I wish Lance Stroll the best in his recovery, but who knows how that's going to affect the constructor standings. Fortunately, they have a fast enough car at the hands of Fernando Alonso to be comfortably in fourth, but not anything beyond that. Third, I have Mercedes, who prior to preseason testing, I truly thought that they were going to be second. Last year, they were also third. Their vehicle development and progression, while slow, did ramp up the chances of them solidifying third in the championship behind Ferrari. They were considered to be, in my opinion, the most reliable car on the grid, with the exception of George Russell's Silverstone final laps. With that reliability, there was extreme porpoising issues, and their side podless design made their issues very unique. Everything must be so compact in there, and they were doubling down on that side pod design. We shall see how their development extends. As Lewis Hamilton has said, the new W14, it's a good platform to work from, but currently it's not matching the Red Bull and Ferrari yet. It seems like for the second season in a row, they're uncharacteristically underdeveloped and are going to be playing catch up to Ferrari and Red Bull. And following up with my Drivers' Championship, shouldn't be surprised, Ferrari second. Last year, they were also second. They had the fastest overall car, in my opinion, when it wasn't exploding. And they also had a strong driver pairing. But reliability, shockingly poor strategy, and leadership issues. A team so passionate and spicy that they out-Alfredo themselves into a fiery oblivion. Their sheer creativity and strategy implosion left global viewers entertained for all the wrong reasons. Italians wept into their cannolis, and the Dutch ruddered and clogged in celebration. On a lighter note, Hakuna Mattia Binotto is no more. While I do not believe he was the sole reason for last year's blunders, I do find Fred Vasseur to be a far more grounded leader. He implements a great deal of expectation and self-responsibility within the team, and his previous relation with Charles Leclerc from Sauber is a big plus. This F23 will undoubtedly be a more reliable, faster machine than last season, but will it be enough to be champion? I don't know. Ferrari for now, solid second. And of course, number one for the second year in a row, Red Bull Racing. They were simply the most consistent car, they were the most consistent driver duo. Their weaknesses were solely due to early on reliability issues with the Honda powertrain, and there was moderate team tension. Despite being slapped with a $7 million fine and a 10% wind tunnel deduction for exceeding last year's cost cap due to food, Red Bull just shows no sign of slowing down entering the 2023 season. Last year, like every year, they show an underdog tenacity. They have a great strategy, fast pit stops, stout reliability, and near-perfect gyro performance. The RB19 looks to be unstoppable. It shows strong pace and smooth control at the hands of Max and Checo. What could stop them for 2023? The Perez-Max controversy is significant, but not enough to be anything other than a slow burn. There's going to be the typical conclusionary antics of Dr. Marco and Daddy Verstappen mixed in there. I don't see any evidence that Red Bull can't be dethroned. So, the 2023 champions going to be Red Bull Racing, 2023 Drivers Champion, Max Verstappen. Well, that concludes my 2023 preseason predictions for the Formula One season. This was certainly a detail-oriented video, and it means a lot that you made it all the way through. I'm proud of you. Was there anything that I missed? Was I too critical or optimistic about a certain driver or team? Let me know in the comments below of how you think the season will go. In the meantime, drop me a like and subscribe for more zesty automotive content in the future. This is Dylan Cope of Cope Automotive. Have a fabulous weekend.